We've chosen the nuclear option for our first topic. Here to talk about what happens to New Mexico's national labs if the U.S. draws down its nuclear stockpile. Former state senator and chair of the Senate Public Affairs Committee, Dee Dee Feldman's back with us. U.S. Commerce Department official under George W. Bush, Jamie Estrada, is back. Former chairman of the New Mexico Democratic Party, our friend John Wertheim, is here, rocking a pretty cool pocket square tie combo. And principal of the Garrity Group with a cool tie himself, Tom Garrity. Now, we don't often discuss reports, but in this case, the Albuquerque Journal's Michael Coleman wrote about a study by the Center for Public Integrity saying President Obama plans to reduce the nuclear stockpile from 1,700 to about 1,100 warheads. And John, the New York Times followed up with a report that had essentially the same ring to it, maybe down to 1,000 would be the difference. How do you gauge the threat to Los Alamos and Sandia and our military bases with this report?
Well, I think to some degree it's a little premature to be able to gauge the real threat. I mean, I don't think that everybody in New Mexico ought to assume that just because we're trying to re-engage Russia on reducing nuclear stockpiles in both countries, which is really what I understand the president is thinking about doing, that doesn't necessarily spell some sort of doom for New Mexico's laboratories at all, because of the need to maintain the stockpiles still, and also to do all of the computer simulations and those kinds of things. And more fundamentally, the policy is not set yet. So I think we need to learn a lot more about what the president is thinking about doing. The much more immediate threat to the labs is obviously the sequester problem that we're facing this month.
That's right.
That could cause a drastic meat cleaver-like cutting to the national labs. And so this is more of a long-term issue about our negotiations on the nuclear stockpiles.
Is there an inevitability to this? The stockpile is going to come down if everything trends as a world society as it keeps going. We have a lot of people working on reducing the stockpile. We should just count on this, I would think, in New Mexico at some point, correct?
I think that is true, and I also think people have to keep their eye on the international stage. I mean, the bottom line is we're working hard to keep Iran, for example, from developing a nuclear capability. If we're not trying to negotiate with the Russians, for example, in good faith to reduce our nuclear stockpiles, it's pretty hard for us to get Iran not to adopt a nuclear weapons policy themselves. So I think that the international stage is forcing this on us a little bit, and we do need to be prepared, but it doesn't mean that there's going to be doom for New Mexico, especially now that we have Senator Tom Udall on the Senate Appropriations Committee. He's on the Energy and Water subcommittee, so I think that, thank God, we have Senator Udall there to protect it.
Absolutely. Jamie, speaking of the international thing that clouds all this, North Korea.
Right.
We've got a situation going there. People are detecting, we are detecting, things in the air from this underground explosion. Does that make the point for New Mexico that our job is even more important now in a dangerous world?
Well, I think New Mexico has always played a critical and unique role in the nation as far as protecting the country and the world, frankly. So I think, and may I add, Japan in particular. So we got to think about Japan, because I think if we're starting to talk about reducing our stockpile and get it down to what I think may be dangerous levels, we're only going to encourage proliferation by other countries. And I think Japan may be the next one that says, well, you know what, if you're not going to protect the United States, maybe I need to do my own thing to protect my area because of the threat from the Korean Peninsula. So I think that's something to be concerned about. I am concerned the idea that we're using essentially the existing warheads, because I think that makes us, over time, essentially maybe impact our reliability. It's like the idea of saying that we only have Chevys and or Fords instead of a mix of both. So I think we need to be thinking about that instead of this, what I think may be a radical reduction in our force.
Sure. I want to touch on something, Tom, that Jamie just brought up. It's interesting, the idea that in a world as ours, somebody could wake up one day and decide it's our turn, right, to have something like this.
Absolutely.
And I say this under the context of yesterday, the announcement that India is about to buy a ton of jets from France, fighter jets rather, that have nuclear warhead capabilities to be able to carry. Are we in another arms race here? And again, where does New Mexico fit in? Is this better for us? As the world goes, it's better for us, or as the world gets more sane, it's worse for us? How does this work?
Sadly, I think, on the global scale of things, New Mexico is well positioned, whatever scenario ends up playing out, because, whether it is, nuclear proliferation, and, stability of foreign governments, there is a new type of an arms race. But so Sandia's connection to to nuclear proliferation and monitoring stockpiles is very important. But also so is their work with cyber warfare. So, and that's the whole new frontier, as we've seen in various different forms over the last several days, actually. So, I think, from the standpoint of, economic security, I think New Mexico is well positioned. Dr. Paul Helmert actually made those very comments to the Economic Forum just earlier this week. So, he was sharing with us just a little bit of, his view of the labs and the larger picture. And just by means of disclosure, I do have a current contract. Our firm has contract with the labs. But with that said, I think that it's important that we never take it for granted. And I think that was the one thing that a lot of the leaders of the Economic Forum were concerned about, is that, we've been taking the labs for granted for quite a while.
Interesting. Let me ask you about that meeting. I didn't attend it, and I'm curious if the mention of this happens a lot, a new mission. Now, it's not our choice to create a new mission. We can't walk in there and say, we'd like you guys to work on energy or cybersecurity. It has to come from the federal government. But was there a push in the business community and other places to see the lab just turn a little bit in a different direction at some point?
There wasn't that kind of discussion. It was interesting. The questions afterwards focused more on what can New Mexico do, what can Albuquerque do to make the environment good for the labs to stay here in New Mexico. And both times, the answer was fix the education system, strengthen the education system. And so that was what I thought was very interesting. The cyber warfare, that's an area, a niche where they're really focusing on. So, to the extent that you can create your own work, I think that they're doing a good job of carving a niche out.
There's a theory out there, Senator, that if the labs just hang in there long enough and avoid a closing, avoid a BRAC, all that kind of thing, at some point the new mission, so to speak, will come. Things have to change over time. Should we just assume that? Just hang in there, whatever it takes, whatever our delegation needs to do?
I think that's a recipe for disaster.
Okay.
We can't continue to fight the last war. And, people ask, who are these nuclear weapons deterring? We've been told for 60 years that this is all about deterrence. Now the mission has changed a little bit to stockpile stewardship, which is important in deterring proliferation. But the battlefield is now cyber warfare, drones. These are not things that our labs are proficient in, and we need to do what we can to help them convert their mission. But it's going to take more than just talking about it. The last time that there was a threat of a closure, we had a very high-level commission. We had the lieutenant governor engaged, and I haven't seen much, really, from our state officials or our legislature about this issue.
It's interesting you mentioned that the Kirtland Partnership, a lot of other organizations around town have been active. They could rally the troops, Jamie, in a second for this. But something just feels a little bit different in my gut about this one this time around. Maybe it's just still early days, I'm not sure. So I want to ask you about our new configured delegation. Michelle Lujan Grisham, Congressperson Grisham, is now on the record saying she supports drawing down weapons and we can get by with about 1,000 warheads. Is she on the right track there? Is this cohesive for our state to have our representative doing that?
It's again a discussion about what's good for the state as far as what's good for world peace and deterrence. And so yes, to a certain degree, maybe 1,000's fine. I don't know that, again, goes back to whether or not New Mexico can play a role in helping to enhance the reliability of that stockpile. But going back to the national and international issues with reducing down to these levels, you've got to think about where we are as, what deterrent strategy we have. It's been for, 4 decades or so that these stockpiles have been used to essentially be counterforce. So we would actually be combating military assets. If you reduce down to these levels, you're actually doing a counter-city strategy, which impacts populations of people. So you have a moral quandary here. Do I use my weapons against a population, or do I use it against military assets?
Right.
And that becomes a real serious debate that I think needs to happen in Congress.
That's a really interesting point. I appreciate that for sure. Staying on the politics, the local politics of this, going back to where you started us off with, we don't have Senators Domenici and Bingham anymore. And what do you make of our makeups? Congressman Pierce is not crazy about this report. He's sounding a pretty good alarm here. Our configuration as it stands now, are we in better shape than the old days? Are we in worse shape? What's our delegation team look like to you?
I actually think we're in good shape. I mean, what's interesting is that, if Senator Domenici were in the Senate today, I don't think he would get along with a lot of his colleagues. I mean, he's most recently this week introducing Jack Lew, the Obama's former chief of staff. I mean, the reality is that the partisanship is a real danger for New Mexico. We can talk about these long-term stockpile issues, which are really on the big scale foreign affairs. And by the way, Senator Udall sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee as well. But at the end of the day, the real threat to New Mexico is this sequester. I mean, if we have a massive cut in federal employment in New Mexico that could come in the next few weeks, we may never come back from that. And yet nobody's really talking about that. So when Steve Pierce starts talking about this Obama potential policy that nobody really knows the details of yet, I kind of laugh. Because how about Congressman not supporting this crazy, absolutely insane sequester?
20,000 jobs at risk.
So we really should be talking about the sequester, and this is more of a long-term
And we
issue.
need everybody
Yeah.
as part of this, being a part of the discussion. We can't be just our congressional delegation. You know, it just needs to be
Does the
everybody.
Tom, does the governor have a role here? Governor Martinez?
Well, governor has a role. You know, I think to support the states, do what's needed. But really, it's in the the hands of the folks in Washington D.C. on a full-time basis. And just to expanding a little bit, it's not just the New Mexico delegation, which is very key, but it's the entire Congress. It's the U.S. Senate, because everybody needs to know about the importance, and that's one thing Sandia has been really effective about, is bringing in established senators to let them know what's been going on at the labs.
Right.
That's been real critical. So New Mexico is very key.
But so has Oak Ridge, and there are competition.
Yeah,
So,
well, and when you look at Sandy,
Tennessee.
This is the
Los
taking
Alamos
the
is-
labs
yeah.
for granted thing you mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Jerry Brown is a lot
Right.
more aggressive than
Livermore
our
and
governor
Livermore.
is. Yeah.
Well, all that for debate. I think there has to be a local voice of support,
Right.
and there just hasn't been that in the past.
Would you just steal a little time for you? Would you agree with that as well? There's a role here for other voices besides the official delegation.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The last time we had a huge spectrum from the entire community, military, as well as farmers, as well as people from every part of the state. And we haven't heard anything.
Interesting. Details. John has it right. When the details come out, you watch the troops rally, as they say. No pun intended. You know what I mean. After the break, reforming education and what's likely to get done in the legislature.